implementing this process where ID matters are not discussed at a stage that you can't do your job because there are complaints coming in about resources, there are investigations you know nothing about. Do you again raise this as an impediment to your job and your ability to function?
Chair, we would always find ways, because what we always understood is that when they came from the ID's office, those are priority matters. So we'll always find ways to make sure that these other projects, still continue with whatever, resources we have, move people around so that they can assist. So for instance, if there is a particular tasking in another matter, and then the resource working on another matter is being used in the ID project, then we would find another resource somewhere to deal with whatever tasking that needs to be done on this other matter. So we'll always find ways to ameliorate that challenge.
Okay. Now, you've described in detail the intake process, and we've heard testimony from other witnesses about how it works and how it ordinarily unfolded. Unless the commissioners want you to go into detail, my proposal would be, because I think what's different is your explanation of why this multi-level intake process was important. So could you deal with that, unless, commissioners, there's a question around what was set out in the ops manual about how the intake process ordinarily works?
Shouldn't Mrs. Soko perhaps start reading from paragraph 16, or not?
Chair, my proposal was that we don't...
We skip even that. So where do we start?
To deal with why the multi-level intake process matters.
Which is about which paragraph?
At paragraph 23.
Oh,
Yes.
I did not hear that. Yeah. Let's do that.
Yeah. Just for the record, in some, the paragraphs before deal with how matters reach IDC, the registration process, verification and screening, the intake assessment and the scoring process, the authorization of investigations, the planning and conducting and finalization of investigations, and thereafter securing attendance and prosecution, and ultimately the closure of matters. What's different about your statement is you deal with why this process is important. Can we then go to paragraph 23 of your statement?
Thanks, Chair. Maybe before I deal with that quickly, so I don't want the Commission to be left with a wrong impression. The manual was approved, as I've indicated, and other colleagues have also stated that. It was shared with all the colleagues in IDC, and when new people come, those responsible DPPs will always workshop it to them. The fact of the matter is the intake process did not operate to the T as provided for in the manual. So that is what the reality was, as my previous explanation had explained about how some of the matters came in. But even though it was not to the T, but most matters would go through that assessment process. And later in my affidavit will show that, in fact, most of the matters that we did in IDC are matters that came from the commissions, which came in as a result of the presidential proclamation, and therefore did not go through this process, but rather as a result of the presidential proclamation, and the former ID would have authorized them because of that presidential proclamation, and wrote to law enforcement agencies like IPID and DPCI and requested all those matters to come to the ID then for them to be investigated. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Advocate Johnson said, for example, about Mr. Adams's referral. She said she did not discuss that with you because it was a simple matter, and she was of the view that she could handle it all by herself without involving you. Are you aware of any instances, or rather, how should I put it? Are you aware that the fact that a matter was simple, whatever that means, that was a factor or a criterion that could be used not to involve other people at the initial stages of a matter or of an intake?
I'm not aware of any except for that specific matter.
And that's not an issue that was ever discussed within IDEC?
No.
So she never said, with simple matters, I will not bother you, Mr. Sissoko?
No. The decision to authorize that matter was not discussed with me, commissioners. As I will continue my testimony, you'll understand.
All right.
What happened.
No, I just wanted to understand the criterion she said she used in respect of this crime intelligence, these crime intelligence matters.
I would have asked the same question in a different way, so I'm covered by the chair.
And then just on the application of the manual, so to the extent that Advocate Johnson testified that the manual was just a draft, she would have been misleading this commission. Well, at its lightest, she would have lied to this commission.
Yeah, I don't understand why she said that. The manual was signed by myself and her, and then at her instruction, it was distributed to all IDEC staff.
Just remind us for purposes of the record, we've seen it, but for the record, when did she and you sign it?
I have a date somewhere. I can't remember the paragraph now. But I do indicate that in my affidavit. I think it was 16 October 2024, if I'm not mistaken.
Chair, it is at file 10.
Paragraph, but in the affidavit, it's paragraph 26, top of foot of
Yes,
page,
yes,
foot of
paragraph,
page 11,
paragraph 26.
top of page 12.
Yes, yes.
But Ms. Bowe wants to take us to the document itself.
At page 10 of page 10 of file 10. To the signatures.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
so
Yes.
it was not a draft, it was signed.
Yes.
Even distributed to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do indicate that it was distributed on the, what we call ID comms,
Yes.
where it include all staff, on the 22nd of October.
Thank you.
2024.
Thank you.
Did it differ much from version 1?
Sorry,
Just look at your screen. Do you see that there's amendment history, the heading, and version 1
yes,
was signed on 18 December 2023, and then the current version 16 October 2024. So did the current version differ much from version 1?
So, Commissioners, version 1 was never signed.
Was never signed.
It was a discussion document. As you'll see from my affidavit, I indicated that it was a consultative process. So we had consultants that were assisting us with this document, and then they would send a draft. So the version 1 is the draft that was first sent. We had to engage with it and then make changes on it. And when everyone was satisfied that the version 2 is the product of what we agreed on, then that's when it was signed off.
And the way things work at IDEC, you know, in other organizations, a document gets signed and then it will have an effective date. And sometimes the effective date will be sometime in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So with this manual, what was the effective date? Did it take effect from the moment the two of you signed and authorized it?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Soga, then if you can then go to why the multi-level intake process matters.
Yes. So I emphasize the intake and case selection process, case selection stage of the process because it is deliberately multi-layered and collective. Its stated objective is that case selection is transparent, objective, auditable, and defensible, and that it cannot be manipulated. There is, however, a further and equally important object to insulate the ID from any allegation that IDEC is targeting particular persons or picking or declining cases without proper basis. If a matter is received, assessed, and scored and recommended by a team and a committee before it reaches the ID for authorization, the ID decision rests on a documented defensible foundation, and the ID is protected against the very allegations that are now being made. I was closely involved in creating this framework. I drafted the case intake process that became a case selection criteria, Annexure A to the manual, in August 2022, and I'm a signatory to it. The purpose of that process, as recorded in the document itself, was to establish a case intake and selection process that is impervious to undue external influence and that ensures IDEC is not manipulated to select cases furthering a personal or political agenda. It provided for case intake to assess matters and advise the ID. In 2024, IDEC embarked on an inclusive process involving members across the department to produce the operational manual, which sets out processes in detail and incorporates the intake criteria. The operational manual version 2 was signed by me as head of investigation and operation and by the ID on the 16th of October 2024, and it was shared with every staff of IDEC on the 22nd of October 2024 at 11:31. It is, in substance and in the manner of its adoption, a policy of the unit. The framework contemplated a single designated intake point together with the case intake committee. It motivated for a dedicated post to fulfill this function.
I think you say here I, not it. The I motivated.
Oh, sorry, I motivated for a dedicated post to fulfill this function. A person who would receive all incoming complaints, conduct first assessment of whether the matter falls within the mandate, refer qualifying matters to the case intake committee, and act as its secretary to that committee. The object, again, was to ensure that the ID does not take intake decisions alone, and that she is insulated from allegations of targeting a particular person or having an interest in particular investigation. The job description for that post records these functions expressly, including that the incumbent is to receive and register all incoming cases evaluate whether they are within mandate, refer out of mandate matters, convene the case intake committee, and act as its secretariat. See the attached job description marked MS1. I initially designated the post investigating coordinator. Through the organizational development and job evaluation process, it was retitled Deputy Director, IDC Operations Support, and graded. The post was placed before the job evaluation panel on the 25th of November 2025. The recommendations were approved by the minister on the 31st January 2026. The post was graded at level 12, and feedback on the outcome was provided on the 5th of March 2026. I attach the confirmation of the job grading marked MS2. The process to create and fill that post was, however, not carried through. When I followed up with the organizational development unit, I was informed that they had been instructed to stop the process on the basis that the post would not exist and that the responsibilities would not lie with it, pending a restructuring. The outcome was not communicated to me at the time. I only learned of it on the 27th of July, 2026.
You say this in the passive voice. You say you were informed that they had been instructed to stop the process. Who had instructed them?
The ID.
Thank you.
You can continue.
The consequence is that the single intake point and the case intake committee were never fully operationalized. In practice, matters continued to be received directly, mainly through the IDC spokesperson, including by the ID herself and me, and were not always routed through the collective assessment that the manual and the case intake criteria contemplates. It is against this background that I raise a concern of general application and not as a comment on the guilt or innocence of any person. Where a multi-level intake process is bypassed and a matter is received, assessed, and authorized by ID alone, the very protection that the process was designed to provide objectively, auditably, and the insulation of the ID from allegations of targeting falls away. That, in my respectful view, is the significance of the process for the Commission work. I'm aware that the operational manual has been described before the Commission as a draft. I record that the manual was signed by the ID and me and was distributed to staff, to every employee of IDC as an operational manual. A review of the manual was subsequently undertaken by a single person, which is different from the inclusive consultative process by which the manual was originally made. In my experience in government, a policy of this kind is developed and reviewed through a consultative process and remains applicable until any review is completed. I have not seen the review.
Was there an actual review?
Yes, I've learned that there was the actual review.
Have you seen a document?
I have not seen the document.
How did you get to know that there was a review?
It was discussed in my discussion with the ID. She indicated that she had instructed Advocate Mohammed to do the review. We also had an investigators working session where Advocate Mohammed was in attendance, and she indicated that she was in the process of reviewing the manual.
Is Advocate